Is it possible to make the world a place of love, laughter, and peace with the help of drugs? Can a drug make you laugh no matter how sad you are, and can it make you attracted to a person you find disgusting? In this movie, convicted criminals are used as guinea pigs in the hope of getting their sentences shortened by volunteering to test new synthetic drugs manufactured by a pharmaceutical company. This film focuses on vials that are given to these criminals to make them experience various emotions, including love. One particular patient struggles with these feelings and begins to question if it's all in his head, setting him on a path to uncover the truth. The movie begins with a convict inside a white room listening to jokes from another man outside the room. At first, the man is serious and shows no emotions, but after the man injects him with N40, the man starts to laugh at every joke. The man outside proceeds to tell him jokes, and the convict starts to laugh uncontrollably, even to the point that they are telling him horrendous things about genocide and his life sentence. The next day, one of the convicts, Jeff, wakes up for the morning field experimentation. One of the researchers, Amnesty, drives him to the island and performs the test when they arrive. After the test, Jeff catches up with his co-inmate Izzy, who is grooving to the music. Jeff approaches her, and Izzy asks him how the drug study is going. He responds that when he removed his blindfold, he saw beautiful clouds and flowers. However, in reality, Jeff is standing in front of a dirty factory emitting smoke. When he arrived in his room, memories of the past flashed in front of his eyes. He remembered the times when he was having a good time with his friends and girlfriend. Even being drunk and dizzy, Jeff still insisted on driving his friend's car and ended up in a car accident. The next morning, Jeff was summoned to a white room with a woman named Heather. Amnesty introduced them to each other and straightforwardly asked what they thought of each other. Heather rated Jeff with a low number, while Jeff rated her with a decent number. The two were cold and appeared not to be attracted to each other. However, after N40 is pumped to them, the two becomes attracted to each other and wildly kisses each other while removing their clothes. Heather pounces to the top of Jeff, and they started making love in front of the researchers like animals in heat. After the two made love, they cuddle naked and say sweet words to each other. From strangers to lovers, madly in love in a short amount of time, the two researchers celebrated as they witnessed the success of their experiment. Moments later, the researchers removed the N40 love drug, and the two began to put on their clothes and distance themselves from each other again. The next day, Jeff was summoned to the White Room once more for another experiment with an old woman named Sarah. Sarah seemed to be attracted to Jeff even before the N40, while Jeff looked internally disgusted. N40 pumps to both, and they started making love like animals, screaming in the top of their lungs the arousal. Afterwards, Mark, one of the researchers, replaced the N40 devices in the Moby pack connected to Jeff's back. He also reminded Jeff to be cautious not to let his partners touch the device on his back, called the Moby pack. Later that day, Jeff was invited to the control room by the two researchers. In the first room, he saw a man eating a lot of food, while in the other room were the two partners he had engaged with on previous days. The man in the first room vomited because of overeating, but still continued to eat and feel hungry. Amnesty then gave Jeff a chance to make a choice about whom he would give the Darken Flocks, a drug developed to induce self-loathing. Jeff refused because of his past experience with I-16, which had made him suffer, and he didn't want anyone to go through the same thing. Amnesty became convinced, but mentioned that they would continue testing Darken Flocks, just not on that day. Amnesty then explained the purpose of their research, to change the world and make it a better place. Amnesty noticed that Jeff was somehow disappointed, so he talked with him and asked him what he wanted more than anything in the world. Jeff responded that he wanted to go back and right the mistake he made, as he remembered the fateful day when his friend died. The next day, while Jeff was about to tell Lizzie something, The guards interrupted him because it was Free Friday, and it was his time to call someone outside to talk. He called his ex-girlfriend, who no longer responded to his calls. Jeff told her that he had found someone inside the prison who reminded him of her and that he would stop bothering her. The next day, Jeff was summoned with a big, muscular guy named Rogan, a mean and bully man with anger issues. Jeff then refused to acknowledge if they would repeat the same thing with his two partners with whom he had been intimate. However, Abnesti calmed Jeff by explaining that it wasn't what he was thinking. After a while, the two were released. Jeff realized and went to the control room, where he found Heather inside as well. His realizations were correct. Heather was given a choice on whom to give the Darkenflocks, but she refused to choose, just like him. Jeff also learned that Heather had been intimate with Rogan, which angered him. Abnesti calmed him down and reminded him that he had chosen to participate in this study and that they were experiencing privileges even though they were convicts. While in the cafeteria, Jeff tells Lizzie about the feeling of being injected with Darkenflocks. He describes it as the worst feeling you've ever felt, but more than 10 times worse. Jeff tells her that he doesn't want anyone to experience the same feeling he had. On the other hand, Abnesti and his assistant, Mark, are engaged in some activity to perspire. While Mark is refilling Abnesti's Moby pack, Jeff catches them, and the two immediately stop what they are doing. Moments later, they proceed to summon Heather, while Jeff is in the control room as well. Abnesti tells Jeff that they will continue to inject Heather with Darkenflocks because the protocol committee wants to make sure if his decision is free from the residual love drug. Jeff still disagrees with injecting Heather, and the two of them get into an argument. After the argument, Jeff requests Abnesti to make a call and convince the committee to change their mind for the last time. Abnesti walks out and pretends to make a call to the committee, but he only walks outside to refill his coffee and chat briefly with Lizzie. When he returns to the control room, he tells Jeff that the committee refuses to approve his request and threatens Jeff with removal from the program if he continues to refuse. Left with no choice, Jeff acknowledges, and the researchers proceed to inject Heather with the Darkenflocks. After injecting Darkenflocks, Heather begins to feel the effects of the drug. She becomes uneasy, stands up, vomits, and cries. She is confused by what's happening to her and starts to scream, asking for help. While Heather is in torment, she accidentally breaks her Moby pack, causing the Darkenflocks to flood and be pumped in at maximum. Heather then starts to become agitated and goes wild, breaking things and threatening anyone who gets close to her. Mark tries to back down and turn off the pumping of Darkenflocks, but the Moby pack is damaged. Heather then finds a sharp object in which she slits her throat, ending her own self. Mark immediately goes to the White Room. Before Abnesti rushes as well, he puts his notebook in the drawer. However, his keys fall out of his pocket, and Jeff immediately retrieves the keys and takes the notebook from the drawer. While the two researchers are in the White Room, blaming each other, Jeff tries to find something in the notebook. While he is scanning, he sees a folded paper with the letterhead of Abnesti Pharmaceuticals, realizing that Abnesti is the owner. Abnesti then regains his composure and returns to the control room to check on Jeff. Seeing Abnesti returning, Jeff immediately puts the notebook back in the drawer and throws the keys on the floor. When Abnesti arrives, he reassures Jeff that it's not his fault, while Jeff pretends to be devastated. Feeling guilty about what happened, Mark suggests reporting the incident, but Abnesti disagrees and says that everything will be fine. Afterwards, Abnesti goes to Jeff's room and tries to manipulate him with his flowery words. However, Jeff knows the truth and pretends to agree with what Abnesti is saying. Jeff cries, and Abnesti offers to let them have the laughing drug. In the next scene, the two of them are laughing uncontrollably, even to the point of laughing at a sad story from Abnesti, where his dad left him in foster care. The next morning, Lizzie is injected with a new drug called Phobica, which makes her afraid of something regardless of what it is. They plan to use this to make people afraid of things that are bad for them. After the test, Lizzie talks with Jeff about her experience. After some time, Jeff opens up about the past and reveals that he was with his girlfriend Emma as well. Drunk and sleepy, they crashed into a tree, which killed his friend first. While Jeff was trying to get his girlfriend out of the back seat, the car caught fire and exploded, killing his girlfriend as well. The missed calls are not because his ex-girlfriend is ignoring him, but due to the fact that she is already gone. Izzy comforts Jeff, and they kiss. The two continue to talk while drinking coffee when suddenly Abnesti comes in and talks with them. Abnesti then observes that the two are close. He then stalks Jeff's room with the help of CCTV and finds out that Jeff likes Izzy. The next day, Abnesti tells Jeff again that the protocol committee forces him to give Darkenflox to somebody. Abnesti then shows Jeff that the one who will intake the Darkenflox will be Lizzie. Jeff immediately refuses to acknowledge and gets triggered by attempting to pump Lizzie with Darkenflox. Abnesti calms him down and says to him that they will not proceed and call it a day. After Jeff left, Abnesti orders Mark to double Jeff's dose. Mark proceeds to Jeff's room and is about to double his dose. Jeff then closes the door and stops Mark. Jeff tells him that he knows the truth, that Abnesti is the one in charge, and the drugs are named after a bingo card. Jeff then persuades Mark to stop following Abnesti, where Mark responds that he is only following Abnesti because he wants to help people. Jeff then tells him that it's not too late and he can still change the world for the better. The next morning, Abnesti invites Jeff over to the control again to manually pump Lizzie's Darkenflox. Mark is not present because he excused himself by having a fever. Abnesti then proceeds to give Jeff the controller to initiate the pumping to Lizzie's MobiPack. Jeff still refuses to do so, which makes Abnesti furious. Abnesti, in anger, tries to reveal Lizzie's dark past, but Lizzie initiates and tells Jeff the truth about it. She confesses that her imprisonment is not about robbery, but that she accidentally killed her child. She, in guilt, screams at Jeff to do his job and pump her. After hearing the confession of Lizzie, Jeff touches the phone and starts to pump the N40. Abnesti then suddenly laughs, even though he sees Lizzie devastated by guilt and loss. Thinking that Jeff initiated the pump of Darkenflox to Lizzie's MobiPack, he laughs while Jeff is operating his MobiPack without knowing. Jeff then decreases the laughing drug and increases the Phobica. Abnesti comes to realize that his emotions are being played with and not Lizzie's. He tries to get the phone back, but Jeff maxes his Phobica, which makes him afraid of Jeff. Jeff proceeds to transfer to Darkenflox and maxed it out. Abnesti comes to realize that he was set up and Mark betrayed him. Jeff then turns down the Darkenflox and increases the B6, which is the last and final drug. B6 makes a person obey whatever you tell him or her to do. It is then revealed that Abnesti secretly pumps Jeff with the B6 and causes him to make difficult decisions so that they will see if it's effective or not. Abnesti justifies his acts by reasoning with Jeff that he only does that so people will be in harmony and peace, doing only the good things they are ordered. Jeff disagrees with his way of thinking and tells him that he is removing free will from the people. Jeff then slams Abnesti to the table and tells him to confess his wrongdoings to the public. When Jeff is about to walk out, Abnesti picks up a knife from his drawer. Jeff tries to order him around by pumping B6. However, Abnesti snaps out of the drug and reveals that the drug has limits, and that is when the person's love is threatened. Abnesti then attacks him with a knife. Jeff dodges the knife, but Abnesti still succeeds in knocking him down on the floor. Abnesti manages to get the phone and pumps the 4 vials into Lizzie. Jeff then lunges at Abnesti and pushes him against the wall, causing his MobiPack to be damaged. While the two are fighting and exchanging blows with one another, Lizzie goes wild and is about to kill herself by strangling. Abnesti overpowers Jeff, but when he sees that Lizzie is killing herself, Jeff counterattacks Abnesti and knocks him down on the floor. He immediately grabs the knife and goes to Lizzie. When Jeff arrives, he rushes towards Lizzie and takes out the vials from her back. Miraculously, Jeff manages to save Lizzie, and they try to escape. On the other hand, Abnesti, in the midst of torment and suffering, still informs all the inmates that the program will shut down if they do not capture Lizzie and Jeff as they attempt to escape. While struggling, Abnesti manipulates them to capture the two. The inmates, not wanting their comfortable lives to end, rush out to find the two. Two of the inmates find them first and try to capture them, but the two work together and defeat them. Other inmates eventually find the two and pursue them. The two manage to run away and lock themselves in. Abnesti manages to reach the plane first and flies it away. Fortunately, the two find a speedboat and hop on it, managing to drive away from the facility. All the while, Abnesti experiences mixed emotions. He laughs, cries, says what's on his mind, and hallucinates. After a few miles, Abnesti starts to hallucinate and mistakes a mountain for a beautiful sky. Mesmerized by the beauty of what he is seeing, he crashes into the mountain and dies in the explosion. On the other hand, Jeff and Lizzie drive away from the facility filled with joy for escaping the Spiderhead facility. The two of them drift away after the struggles and dangers.